Seeing familiar faces.
Yeah.
Is everybody knitting the Alma? Because I've had some response of people just wanting to come and learn about steeking.
Yeah.
Is everybody knitting?
I haven't started it because I was a bit iffy about the steeking, and I was going to start the one that's in the book. But then when I saw this about steeking, I thought, well, I can kill two birds with one stone.
Oh, well, there you go. Maybe you'll be encouraged now.
Oh, yeah, I'll definitely do it. But I was getting the wool for the other one as well, so it's
okay. Yeah.
I think the thing with steeking is that it's kind of like socks. You have people who are, I can't do socks. And then when they actually do the first pair, actually, this is not so bad. And I think I have found a lot of people, steeking's the same thing. When we've done a little sample and they've just, is that all? I'm like, yep.
Yeah.
You'll find it's fun.
Yeah, maybe it's the unknown, and once you get a little bit familiar with it, you kind of realize that, all right, it's...
it's nothing like knitting in the round all the way to the top.
Yeah. Yeah, colour work.
You can do. That's what I found most exciting.
Yeah, it's not fun knitting colour work on the reverse side, so...
No, I'm doing that right now in a blanket pattern.
Oh.
Yeah, and it's only a few...
few
rows at a time.
I actually used mosaic knitting if I have to do colour work. It takes longer.
Yeah.
It takes longer, but yeah. All the shortcuts. Or long cuts.
Maybe we'll just give it 2 more minutes for people to join up, and then we'll get a start. Yeah. Where's everybody joining from today?
Melbourne. Just outside the Coldplay concert, Docklands.
Oh, nice.
I'm from Newcastle.
Who was that one?
Me.
From Newcastle.
Newcastle.
Over there.
Yeah, I got this far, and then MCAL came along, so I've been doing
nice
the Stephen West show.
That's good because you've got the main colour work part done.
Yeah. Not quite. It's nearly there, but not quite. I can't remember.
And that's Karina's possum, isn't it? Was that the pink?
Looks like the colour.
Yeah. I think that's been very popular, that pink one. Karina, is that been the...
Overall, the number one, I think.
Yeah.
And then your denim sample one, I think.
This one. Yeah, this one started off strong, but yeah, I'm not surprised the pink overtook in the end.
That's all the possum yarn, am I right?
Yeah. Yep.
I can't use that.
Doesn't agree? No?
No, at Christmas time I was knitting something in the possum yarn, and I was knitting something in the cotton that was dyed from moya, and the two of them combined had a severe allergic reaction. So.
Oh, dear.
Yeah. My whole nose swelled up. I asked my husband, did you put something up my nose while I was asleep? But the doctor says it's one triggered it and the other one helped flare it. So.
Oh.
Yeah, that's interesting you say that, because one of Mum's friends has knitted forever, and she was, I don't know what the fibre was, but apparently she was just coughing and sneezing the whole afternoon with her at an event. And as soon as she put that project away and hasn't touched it, she noticed that she cleared up.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, I've never heard of that before. So to hear someone else do the same thing.
Yeah, I actually had to go to the hospital because it was so swollen I couldn't get any air going in. So in through my, at least I could breathe through the mouth. But I'd made, through COVID, I needed a full Susanna cardigan. And I noticed if I do put it on, I can get really sneezy in that, but it's been washed a lot, but I don't wear it very often now. Because...
Yeah.
Yeah, so I see these beautiful colours, but in the possum merino, it's not
for you.
No, so I go through all the other ones I've bought and put them together.
Well, maybe we'll get a start.
Yep.
How about that? Welcome, everybody. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Gay. I'm a tech editor and a podcaster, and I was involved in the creation of the Alma pattern. They're bringing them to life. And with me is Susanna. She's
Hello.
probably known to all of you. And on the link, we also have the dyers who've been involved in Alma. That's Karina from Louie and Lola, who
With
we've
the
just been
merino
talking
possum.
about her merino possum. You probably have it. And here's another one. Mine.
And Karina's wearing some as well.
And then we've also got Sarah from Bombed Yarns, who did the yarn for the vest.
In this pink. I didn't bring all of them, but I've got the very cute pink and green fade
Oh, beautiful.
colorways here. And this is a superwash 4-ply merino yarn, so no possum in the vests. But very practical for little ones because you can throw it in the washing machine.
Yeah.
So thanks for joining us tonight. We're going to go through kind of all things steeking. We'll start with some of the, I guess, common construction methods, and then we're going to talk about the importance of blocking, and then how to reinforce. And when we go through that, we're going to go through, we have done some various samples in different fibers. So just like Heather was talking about, it's not, I think we found that it's not 100% necessary to use a non-superwash wool. That's kind of the consensus that we've come to this afternoon.
Yep. We've had a little bit of an experimental afternoon. We've tried needle felting and cutting and all kinds of different techniques and fibers. So and Sarah has done some experimentation of her own as well. So I look forward to hearing how that went too. So we have a few different options of how to reinforce the edges and what they might be suitable for in terms of which fiber they might work with, and also what kind of, like, where in the garment that kind of edge might work as well. So it's been quite interesting also for us to learn more about the technique as well.
That's
while
right.
we've been doing this. So
because the first time and the only time I've actually steeked a garment is the Alma cardigan. So it does take some courage. I was talking to Susanna earlier today about how even when I was just knitting a swatch in this dollar store acrylic, I didn't want to cut it because I was like, oh, I'll never get that yarn back. I won't be able to use that yarn again. I'm like, I'm never going to use this yarn again. Like, I use this if I have to whip up a heel turn because I can't work out if the edit is correct. Like if it's working out properly, like I'll just knit like a little test swatch or something in this. Like
you'll never get it back.
It's true. But if you do take the precautionary steps, then it's all going to be fine. And you can, I posted a reel. Actually, I steeked this live on Instagram. I had my husband film it, and it's in a reel on my feed.
Brave, actually. First time cutting into a garment.
Well,
doing it live.
It was either going to come out just fine or going to be a disaster, and we could learn from it. So
we could laugh at you.
Yeah. I'm here for the comedic relief. Anyway,
all right.
Let's get started.
All right, so we'll do the screen share first.
Yeah, which because what
just the
do you want first? Sorry,
where is the folder?
Yeah,
we'll start with the 1A, 1B. Just open them both.
1A, 1B, and then hopefully it will let me share that.
Hopefully this will work smoothly.
I think we have to do one at a time.
Oh, okay.
But that's
okay. So we'll just start with the first step of steeking.
Sorry, that's this.
Is it showing? All right. So that's I didn't actually take many photos of the cardigan before I cut it, unfortunately. But that's showing the steek panel in the cardigan. And yeah, that's the first step in steeking, is you can't just, or I guess you could, but it's better if you prepare a seam allowance, which is basically what the steek panel is. It's just allowing for seam allowance for your cut, so you can actually then turn them over and finish them once you've cut it. So this is just showing the steek panel, and obviously there's many ways that you can do the steek panel. and even different widths. In this photo, you can see the one that's used in the pattern, which is 5 stitches wide. And I like that for thicker yarn, so you don't have a wide, bulky seam after you cut it. Maybe show the other one.
Okay.
Other one next. And then in this next one, this is just a little swatch I knit yesterday. And this is my superwash test. And I just knit it slightly wider, so that's a 7-stitch wide panel. Because it's a superwash, I wanted to have a little bit extra width just in case it's a little bit more lively after cutting. There's a little bit more, I guess, like allowance for things to go wrong.
When you say lively after cutting,
like the yarn,
it's gonna.
Yeah, I wasn't sure how, because this is my first time cutting superwash yarn, so I wasn't exactly sure how it would behave. But it worked out well, and I like doing the steek panel with the vertical lines, but you always do want to have a steek panel where you have like one stitch with like alternating one stitch at a time per color, but you could also do like a checkerboard type pattern or the vertical stripes. But I like the vertical stripes just because it makes the cutting easier, and you kind of have these nice straight lines that you can kind of follow when you're doing the cutting and the reinforcing, but that's not the only way to do that. So I think that's enough about the panels.
Sorry, Sarah, I think you can show your panel now. I saw you pulling it up.
Actually, Sarah, you have the
Showing what Susanna was saying about having, oh, that's the wrong side, sorry. No, that's the right side. Alternative colours. What you were saying. Yeah.
So it really doesn't matter all that much which way you do it. If you have a preferred method, then just do it that way. Then the next step in the steeking is, well, obviously knitting. You knit your garment. And then I haven't actually included this in the pattern, and I think Sarah mentioned this one to me about blocking before you do anything more with the steek, and that's actually a great idea, especially if you have a more slippery yarn, because it will set the stitches in place so they are more secure when you cut them. So that's actually a really good suggestion. With the yarn like the merino possum, it's pretty stable after you knit it anyway, so it's not as crucial. But if you're using anything slippery, then I think that was a really great idea. And for the superwash swatch, it made a huge difference. So for superwash, definitely recommend it. All right, let's get some more photos happening. So next we'll talk about the kind of maybe more of the meat of the matter, which is the reinforcing techniques. And there's so many different ways you can do this as well.
Which one do you want first?
Wait, let's do, what do I have? Edges. Let's start with, actually, let's just start with what we have here. So first one. So I don't know if this is the most common way to, sorry, these are cut into. I'd already cut into this.
Sorry, do you have the other pieces? Because this got laid out on the table today, and I was just like, what did even happen here?
Yes, it's a bit of a situation. But so this is showing, this is the first steeking test I did for the cardigan, and for this one, as you can see, it's unraveling a little bit because I used a crochet hook that was too big, and I used the yarn, the same yarn as is in the pattern, the working yarn, which is also not ideal. So it creates an edge. So I'm kind of showing you what not to do here first. So it actually stretches out the fabric, makes it longer. So when you're turning it over, you kind of get a seam allowance that kind of puckers a little bit. And also because you're using a thicker yarn, it creates a more bulky edge in general, not just puckering.
So when you do the crocheted edge, you should be using a yarn that's thinner.
So, use a yarn that's thinner, and also a crochet hook that's smaller than the needle size used in the pattern. So you get a really nice firm firm edge.
And I can second that because I didn't follow Susanna's instruction. And I used the same yarn thinking, oh, that's going to look nicer.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was too bulky. So wish I had followed that recommendation to go down in yarn weight.
So there was a reason for it, huh? And I don't know if this is going to be super visible and this is already a finished edge. But
Are we talking about after we've cut it?
no. Good
Okay.
question. So when you do we haven't gotten to the cutting part yet. So
Okay, so what are we doing?
So when she's talking, Susanna's talking about one of the steps, which is crocheting. So this is, I've got two here in this one swatch. So this is what the swatch looked like. And then I crochet, which is what Susanna was talking about, up the middle of each side of the swatch. So you can see the crochet that I've done there. Can you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I used a 4-ply, and because this is an 8-ply yarn, and I used quite a sticky 4-ply as well. So crocheting, I had 6 stitches as my, what's the term, Susanna, as the
steek
panel? Yeah. And so that means the third stitch on each side is the stitches that I crocheted. So what you're doing is crocheting it sidewards, and you're catching both the loops of that knit stitch. Crocheting.
Sorry, keep going. Keep going.
So I used a smaller hook. I did have everything here, and the yarn, and I basically picked up. So I've got the third stitch. Again, I'm not a crocheter, so I'm probably not using the correct terms, but I put the hook through with already the slip stitch. No, not the cast on stitch. I slipped it through both the
legs. I think they're
both the legs of the stitch through. Picked up the yarn, brought it back through, and then picked up more yarn and brought it through both of them. And then went the next one down and did the same thing.
All right. I've got a little video
That
here
makes
I'm going to
sense.
show you that I quickly did yesterday. Is that screen sharing on?
Not yet.
All right.
Oops. Can everyone see the video?
Yeah, sort of.
All right. So this is showing what, so the green stitch that's like on top there, or half of the green stitch, that's the center stitch of the steek panel. And that's the stitch that you will be cutting through. And this is just showing how the slip stitch crochet is done. So you want to have one leg from each stitch. So you're securing both colored yarns in the process. Like so. And as you can see,
Is this something that's an optional process for reinforcing, or is this something that we should be doing before we steek?
So I definitely recommend reinforcing using one of the methods. That technique there was what I recommend in the pattern, but there are other ways of reinforcing. You can use a sewing machine, and I've got a photo of that as an example as well. Or you can do needle felting, which Sarah has done, and we've tested here today as well, and we'll show you some examples. But definitely, if you're using a very grippy and rustic yarn, some knitters do say that they don't actually use anything.
Yeah.
But
Mary
I'm
Jane
not.
Muckleston says that.
Pardon?
You're right. Mary Jane Muckleston, when she was down here, was saying that if the yarn's really sticky, she doesn't bother.
Yeah.
She cuts and then,
Yeah. So, like I have this cut piece of the merino possum here, and I've cut this a few months ago, and it's been kind of, doing the rounds. It's been in my knitting basket and in a file, and this is the cut edge, and I haven't done anything to it. So depending on yarn, you could not do anything. But I guess it depends on also what your aim is with it. Like if you don't trust your cut and you want a very like invisible reinforcement, then sewing machine is probably the best bet, or backstitching by hand, and you get a very flat seam that doesn't add bulk. And out of the crochet edges, the slip stitch that was shown on the video and that Sarah was talking about as well, is fairly flat as well. So there are different options, or needle felting. And should we show the needle felting?
Yeah.
So
The version is that it actually causes your edges, as we talked about earlier, to roll in, and that's really nice for you to then just start your, getting the button line in.
So this is I actually tested needle felting a superwash yarn because I read online somewhere yesterday that it's doable, and it does felt it. I don't know how visible it is. But being a superwash yarn, it's not as stable. Like I definitely wouldn't just leave it cut and not do anything. But it seems to hold. But there's definitely more movement here than the machine. There's a line of zigzag stitches there. It's a little bit stretchy, but it lies very flat. And then I have a crochet edge, the slip stitch crochet edge here, which is very neat as well, and that's quite firm. But so far it seems like both edges are holding very well in the superwash yarn as well. No issues there at all, but just a matter of whether you need that really firm edge or want a little bit more flexibility in the edge. And obviously not everyone necessarily has a sewing machine, so that might create some issues, but you could also do it by hand. And I used a zigzag stitch to get that extra stretch to it, but you could use a straight stitch as well and get a firmer edge. So there's lots of different ways of doing it. Basically, it's like finishing a fabric edge when you're sewing, like you just want it to not fray. And there's various ways that you can achieve that. And Sarah, did you want to show your needle felted?
Sure, I just cut the crochet. So yeah, it's not a big deal. Yeah.
Cutting.
It's not a big deal. So the needle felting side, so what I did is I needle felted. I'll show you what I used. It's not easy to tell, I know, but if you look on the back of it, you can see that it's really fuzzy.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell? So you know that some felting has happened there. So all I simply did was use felting tool that I have. This has got the 5 needle felting tool, and it just comes together. You can get them at most craft shops, and just sat where I wanted to felt onto the mat, and it's really as simple as just doing this, and that's all I'm doing. And I'm just doing that until it felt like that the back of it was really well felted, and I just kept doing that until I could see the back was getting all fluffy, and it was just as simple as that. And the idea of the felting tools is that there's the needles, they're more like barb-like needles. They've got really fine, jagged edges, and so that encourages felting of the wool. Once it's felted,
like fun, Sarah.
Sorry?
It looks like fun.
Yeah.
Very satisfying. Get all your aggression out.
Yes,
It's very satisfying.
Getting your animals. And then, simply just using scissors, I just cut along where I felt it in the middle. And I don't make it
live steeking now.
And if you look at the edges, you can see how, where's my camera? You can see how the feltings cause the yarns to mix together.
Mm.
I mean, I probably could have done more, and probably I probably could do more. The true purist would say you should do that a lot longer. But yeah, I mean, it's literally as simple as that. And then I would do what Susanna was suggesting, then either sew it, or I would actually probably felt it more. While we're talking, I'll felt it more. And then if it was actually a garment, I would then just pick up my stitches and start doing the button. Yeah. Is that how you did it? Did you use something like this?
Yeah. So I went to Spotlight today and got myself the brushy thing. What's that called? Was there a name for it, Matt? I don't know what it's called, but basically like a brush, like a very dense brush. And same thing. And then they only had the single needle ones.
With the springs, makes it easier, less fatigue on your hand.
Yeah, and it's very satisfying. We were getting our feelings out earlier. But yeah, it was fun. And even with the single needle, it actually didn't take that long. I thought it was going to be really tedious, but
yeah,
we had to stab it more times, so I guess it makes up for it.
Yeah.
And I've had some feedback on the podcast about people wanting to be able to knit with some more affordable options of yarn. So I've done my swatch in acrylic. So I did a crocheted reinforced edge here, and I have cut that, and that's I think you can see that's pretty much staying put. So it's looking pretty good. On the other side, I've already picked up some stitches and just started knitting away on it. So that's all right. I've actually also felted and cut the acrylic, which we had no idea that you could actually do. But you can see how it's gone very fluffy there, and I have cut it, and it looks like it's pretty
firm.
Like it's holding firm. Again, you would probably still want to run a sewing machine or just some basting stitches down that to
or felt it more,
or do something.
Yeah.
But I also just went ahead and cut it because I thought, well, let's see what happens if you do that. And the results have not been amazing. So you can see that that's just still kind of coming apart. We did have a conversation about whether if you used acrylic yarn, you could just put an iron on it and melt it, which is a possibility, but maybe do that in a well-ventilated area.
Yeah. Not guaranteed that it's going to.
Yeah, I did say, I could just put a match to it, right? And just kind of singe it a bit.
Nice soft edge there. You'd be a bit
just fold it and put a ribbon on it, right?
Oh, there
so
you
a ribbon
go.
down there on
there
that
you
edge.
go.
But yeah, so really
we're kind of trying to push the limits of how far you can take it and what fibers you can use and what techniques you can do with what fibers. So I also did a little bit of needle felting on the merino possum, and that seems to work really, really beautifully. No problems there. Creates a really nice solid edge as well. So I think that's kind of covered most of the different ways. I hope you're not completely confused. This is a very rambling story.
Should we pause and say, does anybody have any questions?
Let's do that
at this stage.
No? All right.
Okay.
Good.
Or does anyone want to share their own sticking experiences?
Haven't tried it, so. Okay. I'll ask, what makes steeking an option? Why would you use it? Rather more often than not, if you start to use it. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah. I can start. I wouldn't use it mostly in situations where I prefer knitting something in the round rather than flat. That would be the main main reason for me. I don't see really any other big draw to it. But definitely colour work. I don't enjoy knitting colour work flat because of the wrong side rows, so I would do that. And I've recently even considered testing steeking with other techniques that are not usually steek, because I just don't want to do it flat. I want to do it in the round.
Yeah.
So I think that's it. Can you think of anything else?
I think that's the main one. So I think you can do shawls steeked.
Yeah.
But for the same reason that you wouldn't want to have to knit it flat.
Like colour work. Sure.
Like colour work.
Yeah.
And you don't just steek to make a buttonhole. Sometimes you see some patterns that you steek for the armholes.
Mm-hmm.
Or I haven't seen a pattern that you steek for the neck, but I'm sure there'd be patterns that even for that.
That's
Definitely
done as well.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And it originated from, way back in sort of like Shetland Island and all that, because they would knit in the round and make their yokes. And because their yarn is so sticky, they could just cut. But because we process yarn more and more, we've had to be a bit more careful with how we steek, because we tend to use yarns, variety of different yarns.
I think this one has a few.
Are you looking for an example?
Yeah, like a.
While Gan's looking at that, I can tell you from experience. So this is Mary Jane Muckleston's Puri Shop cardigan, and I used 10-ply white gum wool. So that's a non-superwash. And if any of you have worked with white gum wool, I mean, it's a non-superwash. It's a lovely yarn, but it's a very, very different yarn to the 10-ply that Mary Jane used. So to actually steek this, I mean, I've got to be honest, I think it's an absolute dog's breakfast. So I think the bigger the yarn, the more challenging it is. But also the type of yarn, because white gum wool, though it's a non-superwash, it's nowhere near as sticky as some other yarns that would do the job heaps better. So I'm actually thinking of, I mean, it's all finished now. I'm going to let it get to a little bit older, and then I'm going to give it a really good peel, and I think I might even felt it a little bit, just so it fits me better, but also so the colour works looks a little bit more like a fabric rather than a knitted piece. Yeah, that's just even if it's an unsuperwash, it doesn't mean it's going to act like the traditional colour works that we see from Europe and that.
I've just found an example. I think that's a pretty good example, if I can show it, of a sweater pattern that's you can see the color work there is really ornate. Now that sweater has steeked armholes, so you can imagine you would just knit,
so like knitted
round and round, exactly, and then cut the armholes.
That's brilliant.
Or even like doing a blanket or a baby blanket where you want to have a color work. Like it's much more fun to knit it in a tube, then cut it, and then do edging all the way around it.
And more fun.
Well, heaps more fun, I think.
I don't like prilling that much.
Yeah, and just doing the floats on the right side rows, like there's enough trouble there already. But then
trying to maintain color dominance on the wrong side of the knitting.
But it's doable.
Yeah.
Just a preference, I guess.
Yeah.
Like with anything. All right. Are there any other questions, or shall we move on to the actual cutting finally? Yeah, there's so much more that goes into it before you even get to the cutting part.
So can I just, I'm just going to go back over it.
Yep.
You've got your garment. Make sure you've got at least a 5-stitch panel. That would be a minimum.
Yeah.
On anything. Okay. And you've knitted the panel up the middle as well. And then once you finish that, then you would block it.
Yep.
Before you do the armor, say add the arms or anything else.
Yep.
and then reinforce.
Yep. Both
And now
sides
we're
of
up to
the
where you're
center.
up to now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's where we're at. And also with the panel, remember to do the alternating colours so you get both colours secured when you're doing the reinforcing.
Oh, reinforce both colours.
But if you knit it correctly, you
Yeah.
will do that.
You will,
Yeah.
yeah.
I have seen a designer use a stick panel of 3 stitches, and I was,
Yeah.
5 or 6 is,
Yeah, I would say 5 would be safe. But I've seen just yesterday was researching Steeking, and there was one that did 2 purl stitches.
Oh.
And then just cut in the middle of those purl stitches. And so,
well, I'm a beginner. I'll start with 5.
There are many ways.
Yeah.
But
can I? In my swatch, I thought, oh, should I just chuck some purl stitches, a row of column of purl stitches, be just knit stitches, or could it be purl stitches?
Well, some designs actually specify a purl stitch as the edge stitches of the stick are purled. And then when you're picking up stitches, you have that line of purl stitches where you're picking up stitches from. So that's a viable option, and no reason why you can't do it that way. Mm-hmm.
Can I just ask a question?
sure, Karen.
If you're doing the crochet one up the middle, so when I'm looking at mine, I have the 2 colour rows with a grey one in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
So I would crochet one of the legs of the grey with one of the legs of the colour all the way up, and then up the other side as well.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're stretching out that middle stitch.
Yeah.
Which is where we're going to cut. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And crochet so that the middle stitch is further away from you, so that the crochet stitches that are kind of look like the knit stitches, like the row of stitches that you create with the crochet, they are both facing away from the center stitch. They kind of holding away like that as well.
I've seen some designers also with the stick panel have knit, purl, and then the opposite, the next row up. So that's another way of reinforcing it. Yeah. But yes, generally, like Susanna was saying, that you reinforce either with crochet, with felting, or with sewing, and then cut.
Yeah. Do the reinforcing first, and then cut.
So if that's my middle stitch, and I'm going to crochet from here to this stitch, here to this, like the middle stitch, and then I'm going to cut that middle stitch. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to cut a whole stitch, took a whole stitch out, but you don't. You actually just cut right down the center.
Yeah.
One
or
stitch.
if you have an equal number of stitches, you're cutting like between the 2 middle stitches.
Yeah.
Just cut in the middle wherever that hits.
So you end up with 2 crochet.
Yeah.
And the reinforcing is usually always really close to the cut as well.
Yeah. That's I know. Yep.
All right. So we all clear on this. All right. So then the next step, you've got 2 options after you've got the reinforcing done. You can cut, or you can actually, if you're doing a button band, for example, you can pick up the stitches for the button band before you cut. And that's a good way to do it, especially if you are concerned about the edge and how stable the edge is, even with the reinforcement, if you're using a slippery yarn, or if you have a very narrow panel. Then picking up the stitches for the button band before you cut will actually help with keeping the edge stable. But you can also just cut away and then pick up the stitches for the button band. So that's kind of the next 2 steps, depending on which way you want to do them. And I have a video here where I'm showing 2 different ways of picking up stitches for the button band. And I have recommended one of them in the pattern, but they both work. There's only a very subtle difference in them. Is it that one? Picking up, yeah. All right, that one. Can everyone see the video?
Yeah.
These are, by the way, very unedited, rough cuts, these videos. I just did them yesterday, so hopefully they are clear enough. So this is my 4-ply superwash. So here I'm obviously doing it where I've done the cut edge first. So I'm putting the needle tip in the space between the stitch panel edge and then the first actual stitch, and I'm just putting it through the hole.
When you're doing that, do you pick up every stitch, or do you do a 2 or
it
a
depends
3
on your
4
gauge. Depends on your gauge. Like for me, in the color work section, my stitch gauge for the button band and the row gauge for the color work was the same.
Mm-hmm.
So I picked up 1 stitch from every stitch. But then when you're doing the stockinette, the ratio changes, and then you would do it according to, I think 3 to 4 is probably a pretty common one.
Mm-hmm.
So that's showing the technique that's recommended in the pattern. But if you don't cut the edge first, then this one is a little bit tricky to work. So if you want to leave it uncut when you pick up the stitches, then I would recommend using the other technique because it's just easier to work. But this is my preferred method because it creates a really clean looking edge on both sides and it lays quite flat. And it's also securing the floats at the back of the work. So when you're folding the work, the floats don't kind of get shorter, and then the stitches near the turn actually can get a bit floppy. So that technique actually secures them. And this is probably the more common technique I've seen around, where you're actually folding the work and you're knitting into both legs of the edge stitch of the steep panel, the last, like that. And it kind of folds it creates a fold for you when you're doing it as well. But in terms of the end result, like the difference between those two, like you can't really even tell in the end. With that one, the one minus with this technique is that this one doesn't tie the fold of the floats, and it can loosen up the edge stitches of the color work, which I found because I've done one of my Alma cardigans using this technique and one of them with the other technique, and the edge stitches of the color work in the one where I used the second technique kind of loosened up a little bit when I folded the fabric. So, but these are all very like minor little things that I think everyone finds their preferred method when they just start testing things around. But in terms of looking at the finished cardigan, you really can't tell much of a difference. Like it looks the same. That's done with the method that's in the pattern, the first one shown in the video, and this one is done with the other method. And you kind of see this stitch here is a little bit more separate from the next stitch, but it's hardly noticeable. But with this one, I noticed that these color work stitches here started loosening a little bit when I folded. So that was the only kind of thing that I didn't like. But with this one, I did pick up the stitches before cutting. So that's why I did it that way. And in the other cardigan, I did it the other way. So
I cut mine first.
Yep.
I didn't get the memo about reinforcing picking up the stitches.
I added that note after test knitting, actually.
That's why I
Probably
didn't get
why.
So I did mine that first way, which was a different way than I had ever picked up stitches before. But as you can see, that line that it creates is really tidy.
Happy with the tidy line?
Yeah.
Good. All right, so that's the picking up the stitches. Do you have any questions about that step? Nope, all clear.
That's
all
a
right.
good one.
And then the final step is attaching the selvages to the back of the cardigan, and it is already visible shown these a few times now, but I've used whip stitch here. Simple technique, and you don't need a lot of tools or extra materials to do it. So that's why I chose this technique. But also, if you have a pretty ribbon to sew on top of the whole edge there, that works beautifully as well. I didn't, so that's why there isn't a pretty ribbon there, but that's a really nice way to finish it as well. Probably takes a little bit longer, but also if you are worried about the edge at all, then having a ribbon there will give it even a little bit more protection and make it more secure. And I do have a video showing the whip stitching as well. All right. All these unpublished videos come out of the woodwork. All right. So a little note, I think there's a little mistake in the video. So when you are whip stitching, you should actually really make sure that when you're catching the, I'll show you when the step is happening. All right, so at this point, make sure that you are catching the crochet stitch and you're actually hooking the needle on the other side of it. So you're not just catching the edge of the fabric, you're catching the crochet stitch as well. And to keep it invisible, I found that the best way was just to use those purl bumps, not going through the whole fabric, but just going through a purl bump every few rows to catch it, and that was very invisible. And yeah.
And you don't need it close together, do you?
No.
Susanna, how do you do that when you're on the colour work bit? So when you've got the floats that you've cut across, where do you choose to?
I just
the stitch
kind of anywhere. I'm kind of not too picky. I try to not catch get a long float. Like I try to find a purl bump behind the float so it's a little bit more secure, especially with the long float. It's not very secure. So, but yeah, kind of just wherever I happen to find a good spot. And we'll probably stop the screen sharing, and Gayan can show her.
Well, I haven't done it. I also didn't get that move. So mine still is quite raw on the edge, but it's been
a few months.
Yeah. I can always go back and do it.
Yeah.
And I think what I'm trying to find a purl bump in here, like just
I'll probably just catch that one anyway.
So if you're in the color work section here, you can always just catch one of these little bumps. They'll be poking through every so often. I think frequently enough for you to be able to catch that.
And also the frequency would depend on like how wide your selvage is or the seam allowance, and how drapey the fabric is as well. So with something like an 8-ply yarn, it's quite sturdy. It's not gonna sort of go anywhere if it's not that like close together. But obviously with the finer fabric, you might want to do a little bit more. But kind of just play by ear kind of a thing. Just what seems to work with the fabric that you're handling, and if it's secure, then that's all you need. Like do kind of.
Would you recommend a small sample for gauge and for steeking before you start? Where you said depending on what type of yarn you're using as to what type of steeking you would do, reinforcing you would do. So you know how you do a swatch for gauge? Would you suggest using that also for a sample of the steek?
Yeah, I think that's a really great idea, and that's what I often do. It's a great way to test it, because like I can tell you what works. Like in the pattern, I can tell you what works with the yarn that I'm using and what I found best with that yarn. But if you're using a different yarn, then it's definitely you'll get the best results if you, well, maybe start off with that one or your preferred method and see if it works with that yarn. And yeah.
I'm curious that do you whip stitch? I've noticed that you did that whip stitch after you have done your band. Would it be a good idea to whip stitch before that? So it provides a stable setup to then pick up for making your button band?
Possibly. The only thing that I can see not working there is that if your fold is in a slightly different place to where you're picking up, then you might be creating a little bit of tension.
Yeah.
Or kind of like unevenness in the fold when you actually do pick up the stitches. So I would recommend picking up first and then securing so you get a really neat and flat fold.
Okay.
Have you ever done it the other way? I mean, maybe it works.
I've never whip stitched, but I like the idea of how it flattens it. Just sort of,
But that is really a cosmetic thing. Like,
yeah,
when you're wearing Gay Anne's cardigan, like you can't really tell that it's not whip stitched.
Yeah.
It's not really visible. But if you like fine tuning your little details and you enjoy seeing the pretty finishes on the inside when you putting it on, and like I do. Or even a beautiful ribbon, like it's a beautiful detail to have the ribbon, even though it's a little bit of extra work.
I'm going to find a ribbon, and then the next time I'm at yours, we'll sew it on.
Yeah, it does look. I want to get some pretty ribbon too. All right, but I think
would you just slip stitch that on the
ribbon? Yeah, and use a sewing thread for that. And I did use for the whip stitching. I used the same yarn I used for the crochet reinforcement. So it's a thinner yarn again. So just to reduce bulk, that's basically all that we're doing there to get a neat and flat seam. And did Karina want to share her experiences? We've kind of covered all the steps of steeking, and Karina has her cardigan on. And no comments? Is your sound off?
Yes, hers must be. Her mic's off.
Okay.
Okay, sorry. My mouse wasn't working. Apologies. A lot of the things Susanna said as don't do, I accidentally did. First of all, when I can't count. So when I finished my corrugated rib band, I realised I had extra stitches. I thought, I'll just put them into the steak panel. That's fine. I'm not going to undo it again because there'd already been 3 attempts. So that's fine. But the combination of having 2 extra steak stitches meant I had wider steak panels. Then the mistake of not following the guidance for using a thinner weight yarn for my crochet reinforcement added further bulk on top of the additional stitches. And then also I think I should have used a thinner yarn for the whip stitch as well. So I feel like I've got a lot of bulk.
Like again, it doesn't really show when you're wearing it, and it's definitely secure. Like functionally, it works.
But my steak panel is far wider. Yeah.
And have you blocked yours, Karina?
Yes. I made quite a few other errors too. That when the pattern tells you to obviously, like I knitted my sleeves first, right, before I did the body. So the fact that then they were set aside, I didn't then read the very final sleeve instruction, which was to put X number of stitches on hold in the underarm of the sleeve. I did that on the body, no problem. I'm thinking halfway through as I'm knitting upwards, going, what's happening here? But as a result, I have 13 extra stitches in each shoulder panel. And then it wasn't until I got to the very top and went, why are these 13 extra stitches when my stitch counts were fine on my back and my 2 front panels? So I've just basically, my final row, did knit 2 togethers where I could to kind of minimise that down as much as possible. But it means I have all this extra bulk there. In addition to the fact I thought my swatch was telling me something different, and I didn't size down my needle I stayed with my Colourwork size needle for all my stockinette. So both my arm, you can see all that extra fabric on my arm and also my upper body.
Yeah.
However, in saying that, can I say, saying that, I actually have really big arms up here no matter what I do, and I need that bulk. So
If I've been able to help you,
yeah,
I'm very happy. And then I added extra length as well. So the combination, and it's probably a little bit too long, so the combination of all of that is too much extra fabric. It's still beautiful to wear, and I'll wear it around the house. And I'm going to make
you have my address. Is that all right?
Exactly. But it was after all of that, it was a perfect fit for my 6'6" tall partner at Bendigo. Even the sleeves were like good, and
yes,
your shoulders. So
was that cardigan?
Yeah, it was Karina's cardigan.
Because it looked, sorry, this is going to sound rude and it's not meant to be. I thought you made a different design or added stitches in certain areas to fit a male.
Well, she did.
That makes sense. You know,
I know. What
somebody has jumpers for men and for women the same jumper, but kind of design that's slightly different.
Yeah.
And I thought, gee, that's brilliant. Look how quick she knitted. I was telling someone else who was knitting one of those.
I'll send you my notes.
Sorry. You can send them. Because even where you picked up here, where you can tell that now that you've showed us that it was steep, it actually looks like you've just decreased stitches, and it's on both sides, so it's even.
That is got the decreases, the little bumps you can see there.
Yeah, so it's so even that you would think it was incorporated in the pattern.
Those are by design. The extra decreases are actually here on Karina's. Like these ones at the front are actually by design.
Well, they look great there because they actually stand out, but they do look like it's the flow of the pattern.
Those ones are.
You can't really see it in the pattern yeah.
And it's visible in the photos.
Yeah. So there you go. I just thought you knitted 2 in a row.
All right. So who's ready to steek?
I might start knitting. I feel like I could do it now. I feel like doing it won't be.
Feeling confident now. That's great.
Yeah, I feel like I can do that.
Yeah.
Actually, I know it's just me talking. I'm sorry. I actually feel like I could do that because I knitted this top up, so the knitted part's quite firm, and the purl and knit it's gapey. You can see it's a bit gapey. I'm a looser purl knitter than knitting.
Yeah.
And I thought, I hate it. So I could have knitted this all the way up and just gone if I wanted to. Yeah. So to do a cardigan, I can just knit it all the way up and a plain one, and even make it
like it doesn't have to be colour work to do.
Yeah.
You can
I feel like I would maybe try that first. I hate to do all that beautiful colour work and then really muck it up. But thank you. I feel confident that I could knit and I wouldn't be worried about cutting something straight up the middle.
Perfect. Good results. How about everyone else? How are you feeling after our little talk?
Yeah, that was really good. It's going to take me a long time though, because I'm using the possum. It's hot now, so it's a struggle getting the Stephen West shawl finished. But this is probably going to be put on hold for a bit longer.
Yeah.
So I might have to see you next year at Fiberfest.
Maybe you can just make a little swatch, and just practice cutting a little swatch. I think that helps. Get confident. Big stuff.
No, I definitely recommend if you're doing it for the first time, just do a swatch first or use your gauge swatch. Even if you didn't need a steek panel to it, just like say this is where the cut line is, and just practice with that, and then you'll know how it behaves, and you don't have to worry about cutting into the cardigan.
And all the links that you put in the pattern for every single step of the steeking technique, I just kept referencing that again and again, and checking out YouTube's. So pausing and stopping.
Yeah. Basically, those videos are not linked in the pattern because I just made them, most of them. But basically, the same techniques are linked in the techniques section of the pattern to videos by someone else. But same techniques. So hopefully, it has made it a little bit more approachable.
It doesn't seem as daunting to want to start a good project and then to do something you haven't done before. Does that make sense? It's like when you start colour work, you do it either too tight, too loose. And then the next step is, what's the next step to doing another challenge?
Yeah.
It's not going to destroy this beautiful work you've spent all this time doing. So,
yeah, that would be heartbreaking if that happened. Wouldn't want that.
No.
Were you going to do some cutting, Susanna, or no?
I actually did all of my cutting beforehand, didn't I? Well, I can do a little bit of cutting because I do have my half cut swatch here.
Cutting wise, I find it's better if you use small, sharp scissors.
Yeah.
I've seen some people come with really big ones. I'm like, no, just don't stress yourself. Start small.
Yeah, small and sharp is good.
Yeah.
They're sharp.
Okay, and they're small. All right. And no one's going to see anything, but the critical part with cutting the center stitch here is that you don't actually accidentally catch the crochet.
Yeah.
But I don't know how much you're going to see, but I am cutting. It's actually kind of fun. And here we go. So that one's got the crochet slip stitch. It's very hard to see. I used the only thinner than 4-ply yarn I had was basically the same color as the white, so you can't even really see.
You can see the clean edge,
Yeah, but it's a very clean and tidy and feels very sturdy. I'm very happy with that edge. It looks very.
I'm really surprised how well the superwash actually has held up on it.
Yeah.
We were too.
Yeah, very surprised. And this was knit at a fairly loose gauge as well. Like before I blocked it, it seemed really loose and wobbly and unstable. So I definitely wasn't holding my breath. But I used a 2mm hook for this, and it was Holstein Coast that I used to do the reinforcing for that. And the other side is more stretchy because I used the zigzag stitch. But it's still holding very, very firmly.
Would you be able to just attach a zip to that without having? So you could use like a wider panel like Karina's top, or can you just, if you wanted to put a zip on a?
Well, with this edge, it's quite neat.
Yep.
But I don't know over time if these loops that are secured by the crochet stitch, I don't know if they would start to come loose. So I would still hold,
yep, and then attach.
Yeah, then attach
with the extra stitching. Oh, yep,
like that.
But then if you do that, you're going to have quite a bulky. Would you be better off keeping it flat and having the zipper? So when you're sewing the zipper on, sewing it with my hand being the zipper and that the fabric, sewing on, because then the sewing onto the zipper would also act as another reinforcement.
Yeah.
And make it less bulky, and the same on the other side.
Yeah, I suppose you could do that.
I've never put zipper on, so
the only time I've done a zipper, wasn't with the sticked edge, so I don't have experience to say exactly what would be the best way to do it. But I wouldn't feel confident in just leaving this edge exposed.
Yep.
Okay.
As is, even though it looks very nice and pretty right now, I don't know how it's gonna
hold up. So I'd have to try it first, because I thought that must have been how they did it.
Yeah. But if you're sewing a zipper, I would probably use the machine reinforcement anyway, just to have less bulk, like Sarah was saying. Whether you do it separately or while you're sewing the zipper.
Oh, okay. So you would sew with a sewing machine and then you put the zipper on, but you mentioned about folding it. So you'd fold it and secure it with a whip stitch and then add a zipper?
No.
Oh, okay.
But in the way that when it's finished, doesn't matter like exactly how you have it when you like you're sewing the zipper on, you'll end up with a fold.
Yeah, so the panel of the zips behind it, isn't it? You just But you could do it in a way like Sarah was showing, but you're still creating a fold.
Yeah, of course.
Like that. But there's no double. You don't need a double fold. Like it's just once. Yeah.
So I thought that's how they must have done it. I remember knitting a cardigan once where I was sewing the zip on and I didn't like the edge. And then when everyone was saying, "Oh, no, Steek," and I thought, well, that must be how they do it. And yeah, no, but that would be a good way to have a
yeah. But obviously, if you have a very bulky yarn and
I understand.
Well,
so
with
the yarn, the better.
Yeah. But yeah, with a steeked, I would definitely fold. Like if you have an edge that's not cut, you just have a knit edge and it's tidy, then why not just use that? But
no, because then you can't knit in the round. That's a left.
Knitting in the round. Yeah, that's
right. And that's what I thought they must have done. Just knit it in the round, put the zipper on, and then open the zipper and just. I don't know why I thought that, but I did.
Well, maybe
that must have been how they did it.
Maybe. I feel like I need to try that now.
Oh, sorry. That was my first project. Was going to be I wanted a cardigan with a zipper. And
okay.
And I thought that must be how they do it. But I'll have a look at that one as well.
Well, let us know.
Yeah. See you in a few years. Not too many whips to do. No, I will try and get to it quicker.
Yeah, gets a bit like that. All right. All right. Closing words.
That's it. Thanks so much for joining us and for participating in the CAL, and it's been really fun.
It has. Hopefully, all of you got something out of this, showing all the different ways of handling sticks and the different steps in making them.
Thank you. You've made it seem, as I said, not insurmountable. Very yes, we can. Even a beginner can actually do it once you understand the steps. You explained it each one very clearly. So thank you very much. I appreciate it from someone who hasn't done it yet.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Nice to meet you, ladies.
Bye. Thanks very much for the tips.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.